I don't have a chime this morning as I am coming to you live from the Van Dyke meeting room of the Town Place Marriott in Warren. We are moved out of our house, but we'll be in Michigan for 2 more weeks, so we're here in this hotel. I am Josh Berg, the intern minister here at Northwest. I welcome you all to Northwest Unitarian Universalist Congregation. If you're here for the first time, if you've been here for years, welcome, welcome, welcome. I am here with Ken Hermanot, and Diana Kohler, Alex Myers, all essential parts of running this service. Reverend Kimmy is off today, getting some much needed rest, and our usual tech host and operations manager, Ben Gable, is off as well. So welcome here.
Our opening words, We Prepare for the Future by Robin F. Gray. By the light of this chalice, we prepare for the future. We prepare ourselves for the times of triumph and times of trial that might come. We prepare ourselves to be present to one another with loving hearts, even in the most difficult of times. We prepare ourselves to make the connections that will lift us out of isolation and prepare the path of justice and equality.
When the ground drops out from under you and there's nothing there to hold on to, no, you're not the first to fall right through to a space of mystery, a place of questioning who you are and who you're meant to be. When you can't find home where it used to be and your roots have faded into memory, no, you're not alone in this new reality. It's a well-trod path traveled by ancestors who came before and show the way. Throughout time, we've been pushed into the dark, called to find the light within our broken hearts and let it shine. And we can't do it on our own, gotta find our family in the unknown. And side by side we'll go by stepping stone till the journey becomes our home. Some days it feels like searching for water in the sand. Sometimes it feels like falling with nowhere to land. Yeah, there are ups and downs that'll turn you round and round. We come back to the footprints, they're all around. And throughout time, we've been pushed into the dark, called to find the light within our broken hearts and let it shine. And we can't do it on our own, gotta find our family in the unknown. And side by side we'll go by stepping stone till the journey becomes our home. When the walls are closing in, we find our way out through the door into a light that's so much brighter than our hearts have known before. When we heed the call to follow the voice that burns within our core, we join the ranks of seekers, wanderers, and warriors of the soul. And throughout time, we've been pushed into the dark, called to find. Throughout time, we've been pushed into the dark, called to find the light within our broken hearts and let it shine. And we can't do it on our own, gotta find our family in the unknown. And side by side we'll go by stepping stone till the journey becomes, yes, the journey becomes our home.
Our first reading this morning is a poem called Of History and Hope by Miller Williams. We have memorized America, how it was born and who we have been and where. In ceremonies and silence, we say the words, telling the stories, singing the old songs. We like the places they take us, mostly we do. The great and all the anonymous dead are there. We know the sound of all the sounds we brought. The rich taste of it is on our tongues. But where are we going to be? And why? And who? The disenfranchised dead want to know. We mean to be the people we meant to be, to keep on going where we meant to go. But how do we fashion the future? Who can say how, except in the minds of those who will call it now, the children. The children. And how does our garden grow? With waving hands, oh rarely in a row, and flowering faces and brambles that we can no longer allow. Who were many people coming together cannot become one people falling apart. Who dreamed for every child an even chance cannot let luck alone turn doorknobs or not. Whose law was never so much of the hand as the head cannot let chaos make its way to the heart. Who have seen learning struggle from teacher to child cannot let ignorance spread itself like rot. We know what we have done and what we have said and how we have grown degree by slow degree, believing ourselves toward all we have tried to become, just and compassionate, equal, able and free. All this in the hands of children, eyes already set on a land we can never visit. It isn't there yet, but looking through their eyes, we can see what our long gift to them may come to be. If we can truly remember, they will not forget.
Our next reading is Braiding Sweetgrass, Indigenous Wisdom, Scientific Knowledge, and the Teachings of Plants by Robin Wall Kimmerer. As the temperature drops, single voices, clear and hollow, replace the keening chorus, the ancient speech of frogs. One word becomes clear, as if spoken in English. Here, here, here. The world is more than your thoughtless commute. We, the collateral, are your wealth, your teachers, your security, your family. Your strange hunger for ease should not mean a death sentence for the rest of creation. Here, calls a peeper in the headlights. Here, calls a young man trapped in a tank far from home. Here, calls a mother whose home is now a burnt out ruin. There must be an end to this. By the time I get home, it is late and I cannot sleep. So I walk to the hill up to the pond behind my house. Here too, the air is ringing with their calls. I want to light a wheatgrass smudge to wash away the sadness in a cloud of smoke. But the fog is so heavy and the matches just bleed a red streak on the box, as it should be. There should be no washing away tonight. Better to wear the grief like a sodden coat. Weep, weep, calls a toad from the water's edge, and I do. If grief can be a doorway to love, then let us all weep for the world we are breaking apart, so we can love it back to wholeness again.
Thank you, everyone who participated so far. James Underberg, the person who did the first song, and hopefully you're able to see him playing the piano, is a fellow seminarian of mine. We have our wonderful Aaron, who did Dona Nobis Pacem. Thank you so much for that beautiful rendition. And thank you to our readings, Alex and Diana. I'd like to talk about hope this morning. Hope. Research supports the direct connection between individual expressions of hope and psychological well-being. That's a great reason to have hope. I guarantee everyone here could come up with countless other great reasons to justify hope. And even though there is plenty of justification for hope, there are times when it's easier to hope and times when hope is much more elusive. And then there are those times when hope seems all but lost. Recently, although there's renewed hope with the election of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, we still have a country that's almost irreparably divided. We are still facing existential crises, including a political system broken seemingly beyond repair, an environment that has been neglected and abused to within an inch of its life, and much more. It doesn't do us any good to sugarcoat the truth. But at times like these, what does do us some good is to up our hope game. To not just have hope, but to have radical hope. Now, how does something change when you just put the word radical in front of it? No, it doesn't turn it into 80s slang. Radical do, well, it does do that, but that's not what I'm referring to. Radical means transformative. It means a complete shift, not in mere degrees, but rather into something completely different. Radical hope isn't hope that things will gradually alter and gradually get better, but that things will and must change altogether. Since there is a call for radical hope right now, let me ask the tough question: how can we manifest radical hope? It seems really tough. Well, I recently read a paper by Della Mosley, Helen Neville, Nayeli Chavez-Dueñas, Hector Adams, Ione Lewis, and Brianna French. All of these academic papers are written by at least 5 or 6 people. And it's called Radical Hope in revolting times. And the paper summarized radical hope in this way. It said, radical hope, quote, differs from more traditional and Western psychological applications of hope in its focus on a commitment and a courage to achieve a vision involving new forms of collective flourishing. That's what we need, new forms of collective flourishing. Now, the paper identified a psychological framework specifically for people in communities of color to achieve this radical hope, this new flourishing. However, they write in the paper that this framework for achieving this radical hope is flexible enough to include and adapt to other contexts, to all contexts. So let's look at it. They began by answering the above question quite succinctly. How can we have radical hope? They pointed out that there has been what they term radical healing in the world. That's existed. There's been healing from slavery, there's been healing from genocide, there's been healing from war, healing from severe collective trauma, all of which, by the way, is still going on, the problems as well as the healing. But what I'm trying to say is that humankind has experienced healing that involved complete transformation. We've done it. And you can't have this radical healing without radical hope. So radical hope must be, therefore, possible. The past informs the present and the future. So how do we get there? It's possible. How do we get there? Well, first, I took it upon myself to reframe a little bit. Rather than radical hope in revolting times, I prefer revelatory times. And I don't mean the biblical story of Revelation, although that story did end with John the seer of Patmos expressing a very radical, aspirational hope, actually. I mean that although our present may be revolting in many ways, true, the future, every moment, is constantly revealing itself. We don't know what awaits us even in the next moment. This alone can give us some hope. Also, we traditionally first think of hope in a very individualistic manner, having hope for ourselves. So dipping back into the biblical concept of hope, the Hebrew Bible uses multiple terms. One is tikvah. You may know the Israeli national anthem is Hatikvah, the hope. In the book of Joshua, ironically enough, tikvah is first defined, and it's defined specifically not as hope, but as a rope or a cord, something that's wound together very tightly and thus is very strong. So we can infer that later instances where tikvah is defined actually as hope incorporate this first meaning of being bound together in strength. In other words, rather than individualistic hope, the biblical hope is hope within and for a strong community. So the authors of the paper declare that the framework of radical hope has to incorporate both of these concepts. It has to be oriented toward the past and the future first, as well as the individual and the collective. And they break down radical hope into two further components. One is faith and agency, and two is collective memory. Now, the Pulitzer Prize-winning Dominican-American author Junot Diaz wrote, "When I look at what my country has taught this world about justice, about humanity, in the face of abysmal inhumanities, I've got to tell you, that alters the calculus of hope, and it gives me hope." In other words, as I already said, humankind has endured incomprehensible hardships and survived. It's had radical healing. And this collective memory is ripe with pathways through all manner of tragedy. When we commit to having the two components of radical hope, one, having faith and taking agency, we can use the stories of our ancestors that teach us pride and resilience to create possibilities, to create meaning and purpose, and to use as a roadmap through struggle into victory. So one, faith and agency, first component, and two, collective memory, second component. The authors of this article expand this into even further detail by prescribing 4 specific pathways for how to produce radical hope in people of color. Once again, this applies to all contexts. First, we have to understand the history of oppression and resistance. In the case of people of color, the study points out understanding things like dispossession of land, like broken treaties, like genocide, enslavement, all of these things, understanding them, as well as understanding how people of color continue to resist and survive these horrible things, puts into clear focus the resilience of humanity against insurmountable odds. Here's another example of this. Only by truly understanding the history of struggle preceding the election of our first female person of color as vice president can we put into perspective the truly transformative, radical change that has occurred. And can we know that against continued seemingly insurmountable obstacles, continued change is possible. So understanding oppression and resistance leads to radical hope. One. Next pathway, embracing ancestral pride. The authors of the report state that studies have also proven that focusing on racial and ethnic pride in youth of color produces positive psychological and academic benefits. Expanding that into all contexts, not just understanding the history of oppression, as I said, but having pride for ancestral struggle and achievement further enables radical hope. Third pathway, let's envision some possibilities. Radical hope requires not just what we would consider reasonable personal goals. We have to envision radical possibilities. The hindsight of collective memory, as I said, combined with the forward thinking of faith and agency, allows us to see possibilities for the present, for now, knowing that our ancestors, having pride in our ancestors having achieved far-reaching socio-political change in this country, which they have, opens the space for imagining other radical possibilities for what appears to be right now unlikely change. Here's an example, another one. What we have done this year already, removing a malignant narcissist with fascist intentions despite his attempts to discredit the media as well as our entire electoral system, removing him is a radical change and will serve to inspire future generations to envision other possibilities for continued radical change when they're confronted with enormous obstacles, as we were. So the final pathway to radical change is creating meaning and purpose. Humankind, against all odds, has the capacity to find meaning and purpose. The life of Viktor Frankl, you may know, is a Holocaust survivor. He's a neurologist, he's an author. His life's work was grounded on the capacity for imprisoned Jewish people in concentration camps who were their families were being killed all around them. They knew they were going to be killed. That capacity for these people to somehow find meaning and hope. Humankind against all odds has that capacity. And the paper I read claimed that a sense of meaning and hope and purpose in people of color develops from a spiritual sense of being interconnected to all humanity. So finally, radical hope is achieved by creating meaning and purpose within community, as we're doing. We're doing it. Is it easy? No. Will it take time? Yes. Is it possible? Absolutely, it is. To conclude, I'd like to play a video that has and continues to inspire me as our last special music. I listen to it, frankly, all the time to lift my spirits. You'll see why. It exemplifies a connection between Indigenous people to the collective memory of Indigenous sibling ancestors. One pathway to radical hope. By embracing ancestral pride, another pathway to radical hope. It models a community that has been oppressed almost beyond comprehension. Understanding oppression, pathway to radical hope. Still having faith and claiming agency in a changing world, component of radical hope. It declares loudly that even though we are proud members of different groups in a pluralistic society, and we are, meaning is made through a spiritual connection to all humanity. It embodies possibilities of radical healing, of radical change, by manifesting radical hope. And this music is called One World, We Are One, by a group called Mag 7, produced by Illuminative. Here it is. Wait, let me remove my spotlight.
people, we stand all together, one voice saying, yes, we can. Each one, reach one till we pull ourselves up, cause we all one fan. From the rest to the block, to the Perry, to the Rock, we connect that love. Cause the people with power feel the power of the people when we stand as one.
I got you stuck off the realness. We be indigenous, you heard of us. Max Heaven, the murderer, spreading the love with the water and earth. And the stand against hate, gotta know what the purpose is. We rise, the climate is changing, signs of the times. It's time to start praying. Pray for the world and community. Prayers are more powerful when we're in unity.
Up today, hungry for a change, new path to take, can't stay the same, it's been too long, pointing out who's right or wrong, can you hear me out? All we need is a little bit of love, take time to heal and it starts with us. Hand in hand, I put my trust in one world, reunite, it's a must. Hold on to hope, we can overload, we can break the code with a single note, sing out for the world to hear that our time is now, no more for tears. I looked into my son's eyes, a new day in a new light. Lift the veil and dwell so peaceful. Come together, one world, one people. What I know, we are one. What I know, we are one. It's who you are, it's who I am. We all bleed the same blood, yeah. Hey. We all bleed the same blood, yeah.
We got beautiful differences. Let me give you a peek. Over 500 tribes, but we all unique. And if we could not compete to eat, nothing could beat us. Jealousy is more dangerous than diabetes. See this unity? Imagine what it looked like. You would think we would do whatever it took, right? I would do anything for this good life. We could do anything if we unite. Come on.
Young native, you are my savior. Say a prayer for our inspiration. From the block to your reservation. Any color, all my relations. From the basement, worldwide invasion. Every day we're painting our faces. Fighting back but learning our language. Dancing our dances, saying our prayers.
One choice, one earth, one love, one birth. We like to live, we like to live, yeah.
One people, we stand all together, one voice saying yes we can. Each one, reach one till we pull ourselves up, cause we all one fan. From the rest to the block, to the Perry, to the Rock, we connect that love. Cause the people with power feel the power of the people when we stand as one.
Our closing words are by Robin F. Gray. The flame is extinguished, but not our hope for the future, our courage in the face of crisis, or the love we share in all the world.
Thank you all. Thank you. Beautiful. I'm going to send you all into breakout rooms and just be with each other.